This video will demonstrate Nethopper's GitOps method to create EKS clusters in Amazon using infrastructure as code. The infrastructure as code, or IaC, used to create the clusters can be found in the public repository shown in the browser. IaC resources have been created in the Nethopper platform, as you will see in a moment, which Argo CD will use to monitor the dev and prod directories, looking for YAML files that define resource descriptors used by Crossplane to create AWS resources like an EKS cluster. On the infrastructure as code page in the Nethopper UI, we see we have three resources defined. We have a composite EKS, EKS Acme Dev, and EKS Acme Prod. Composite EKS is the composition that tells Crossplane how to create an EKS cluster. Consider the EKS Acme Dev and Acme Prod as instantiations of that composition. Looking at the application for each instance in Argo, we'll see that we have an application for both of those clusters, but we do not have any resources yet created. The reason for that is the directory that these applications are monitoring, which we see here as the dev directory down here. We know there is no YAML there yet, which is why we have no resources yet created. In order to get those resources created, we need to copy these YAML files into those directories and commit them into the repository. So I will do that now. Now that the files are in their directories, I will commit them to the repository using standard Git functions. This will result in a GitOps action that Argo will use to generate these clusters. It will notify Crossplane. Crossplane will get those resources and then create those clusters. So now that I have them staged, I want to say add my commit message, do the demo. Commit and sync the. So this will push it now to the repository. Those files should now be in the dev and prod directories, and as we can see here, they are. If we go back to our Argo UI, we'll still see that no objects have been created because Argo has not yet what's called synced to the repository. It pulls it about every 5 minutes, but here, and for the sake of time, we're just going to refresh it. And we can see that Argo immediately saw that YAML file in there and has created this composite cluster, which tells Crossplane to now create that resource. Crossplane looks at the resource, looks at the AWS schema behind it, and begins to instantiate all those resources that an EKS cluster requires. And here we can see an internet gateway, security groups, VPCs, node groups, all the usual suspects. If we go and check the prod cluster, it hasn't done it either because it has not yet synced. So we will refresh that as well, and we should see the same process here. And in fact, we do see those resources getting created. Now, it will probably take about 15 minutes for those resources to get created. And we can see that status here in the Nethopper UI for each of those clusters. After about 15 minutes or so, we come back and we check our status, and we can see that the dev cluster is available, as is the production cluster. I can confirm that by looking at my EKS console and seeing that both these clusters have been created. In the next video, I will take these clusters, add them to a multi-cloud application network, and deploy applications to them.